So now we get to this point. We've seen that these four revelations really were brought by a group of individuals or an individual, in the case of Jesus and Melchizedek. But now we are in these modern times with all these defaults and rebellions and the aggregate of different things that have come. And we get to this point where the celestial agency said, you know what, we cannot reveal, the next revelation cannot be the typical one that we've been doing with a person revealing, because what happens there, we start worshiping that messenger. In Jesus's case, I mean, that's a different, but the important thing is in the message, in the content. So they presented us with what we now know is the conclusion of all this is the Urantia Book, but what started as the Urantia Papers. And it's a very interesting, I mean, I don't want to go into the detail of how, I mean, because there's a lot, but just to briefly
Yeah.
kind of tell us what happened basically 100 years ago, what happened in the 1950s, and where we're at today with this revelation, which is the Fifth Epochal Revelation.
Okay, so to tie it in with the bigger story,
Yeah.
we had this emergency bestowal of Melchizedek
Mm-hmm.
in order to prepare for the coming of Jesus. And it's been 2,000 years since Jesus's bestowal ended, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is my personal opinion. I think
Yeah.
I have to say that, but I believe that the Urantia Book is another emergency bestowal. I don't think it's an actual bestowal because if you look at all of the others, they are associated with, as you said, an individual.
Oh, it is. It is. And they tell
Yeah,
us that they had to get approval and said, okay,
yeah,
these guys need something. And this is
yeah,
only for our planet. It is. Yeah.
that's right. And so what we're looking at is basically a presentation of clarification
Okay.
is what it is. So we've had 2,000 years of basically the post bestowal era of
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. And, there's some really good content about this. The, how Christianity has changed and evolved into what it is now compared to what it was and what it was intended
Mm-hmm.
when Jesus was here.
Yeah.
And so I think and plus with all our massive technological progress, we're getting to the point where we need a lot more cosmological information than we actually have right now, which is
Yeah.
spiritual and all that kind of stuff. Um, so I think they got to the point where they said, okay, we need to fill in some blanks here,
Yeah.
and we need to clarify some stuff that people are getting wrong.
Yeah.
And the way in which they decided to do that was a formal document. And
Yeah.
the reason that I think they did that is because the early 20th century basically saw it the first time on our planet that literacy was at the point where pretty much anybody on the planet could read,
Yeah.
right? We're at that point
Yeah.
now where we have getting very close to full literacy on our planet.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of the 20th century, the early 1900s, they started this process. We're talking about the celestial beings and orders, angels, and all kinds of different orders of beings who are involved or going to be involved in this process of making this formal document.
Yeah.
And they started contacting different groups of people, and one of the groups was in Chicago, and they went through this whole process of connecting contacts and things like that. Questions were asked and answered. A group was formed. This is in Chicago now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a whole process was basically laid out where a group would gather, mostly weekly, and questions would be asked
But
about the
okay.
nature of God. And Yeah.
were they asking? I mean, were there spiritual beings there, and or how was this process? Just to clarify, I mean, and we'll
Well,
probably
I
talk
think
about it later.
what it originally um, focused on was what is referred to as a sleeping subject, and it was this guy. He's
We
a
don't know his
man.
name, and we don't know who
Nobody
he
knows
is.
who he is. He's deliberately. I don't want to say hidden, but they don't want the Urantia papers, this formal document, to be associated with any particular one person
Yeah,
in the way that Christianity is associated with Paul, for example, right?
yeah,
So we have the sleeping subject, and this is the person who these communications were coming through, and
yeah. It was
he
like a,
didn't
kind of
really.
the microphone. I mean, not the mic, the speaker. You know, the connection, just
He's a
the
conduit,
entry
right?
point, the conduit.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and the reason is because we don't have that physical connection or manifestation of divinity on the planet anymore, and
Yeah,
so they had to have some way to communicate, and this is how it started through this guy. And I think there was some writing that happened. There was a lot of speaking that happened. But the result was that there was, as I was saying, this group was formed, and
hmm,
it became a lot more formal where they would ask these questions, and the sleeping subject would be the conduit for the answers to come through, and then um, the answers would be read out, and then more questions would be asked, and it would be refined. And this whole process went on for 25, 30 years,
yeah,
and refined and refined and refined. There's four sections to the Urantia book, right? And the
yeah.
first three sections were basically came into being in this way. The fourth section is different. The fourth section is the story of Jesus on earth, and it's the most complete and profound recounting of his time here that has ever existed on the planet. It's most of the books in the Bible are about, what is it, 70 pages long?
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
700 pages long, and it
10
goes through
times.
his life year by year, and it gives dates. It's extraordinary.
Yeah,
Anyway, that actually was manifested somehow.
yeah,
That didn't come through the sleeping subject. That was done by a specific group of celestial beings who were actually here at the time and used a whole bunch of existing records and their memory,
yeah.
and they
They were
they
there. They're
provided that.
telling their account, right?
That's right. And that's the incredible part about a lot of what's in especially the historical parts of the Urantia book, is that we're getting it from the people who were actually there. Like the Adam and Eve papers, for example, were written by the voice in the garden.
Yeah,
That's extraordinary.
yeah,
Like it's an
yeah,
eyewitness account.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like third or fourth or fifth accounts of what happened, but you know the source. And I really like that. So you were saying, and I love this. We get to a point where we compile and we have now, and like you're saying, the fourth part was a gift to us. You know, it was like, okay,
Yeah.
we're not only setting the record straight about your history, about the universal history, about God, but now we're gonna set the record straight about Jesus.
Yeah.
And they presented us with this.
Yeah.
And what happened in afterwards, after this contact commission gathered all these documents?
So it was fairly complete by about 1934, 1935, and that's where a lot of the dates are measured from. So when they say Adam and Eve came 37,743 years ago, or whatever exactly it is, they're measuring from that date, 1934.
Yeah. Right
But
before World War II. I mean, right
that's the
before the, you know, the
problem, right?
biggest devastation was going to happen
That's the
in our
problem.
world. Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened was the war was basically firing up, and they delayed publication of it until after the war was over. And so it was actually published in a single volume, as it is now, in 1955.
Okay.
And that's the Urantia book, 1955. It's been around, and they
And,
started sending it out to people, and um, it I think it's amazing how many closet readers there are.
Yeah, that we don't know.
I
That people would be surprised of,
Yeah,
famous people that are really Urantia Book readers that they're not publicly express it, right?
that's right. And you don't have to be a public facing Urantia Book reader to to get what you need from it, right?
Which
Um,
is its teachings, yeah, the way to live
exactly.
and relate to, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. So we have the publication 1955, and up to today, we've had many translations. I mean, it's been
Yes.
translated into
Yeah.
Hebrew, Chinese now,
Yeah.
and now we're moving into more of the digital era, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But just
Yeah.
to close off on what happened. Just a little bit of histories from the 80s and 90s. As always, there was a dispute within the
Yeah.
groups and said, okay, we want to publish this. And then another group wanted to publish it. And there was even a court, I think it was a Supreme Court settlement, or not a settlement, but verdict that it says, okay, since everybody's saying that this isn't, I mean, the authors are celestial, there's no human author, then this is public and everybody can go. If you go right now and put urantiabook.com, you can go straight and read it off online. You can buy
Uh,
it. You can check our links. We have links to all this. So this is
yeah.
public. This is
Yeah.
really
It's public.
interesting. It's
Yeah.
such a big and important document. It's public. It's for the
Yeah.
world.
As
So
it
that
rightly
brings
should be. Yes.
it is. It is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So let's talk about right now about your project and what we're doing at the Center for Unity, in which and how I see the evolution of this revelation. I mean, we've had it basically, as we're saying, you started about 100 years ago that these documents started to come, and we're now at a time where basically we're it's not the same as maybe 50 years ago, 40 years ago, where people
No,
would
it's
read
not.
books. Now
Yeah.
it's digital. Now
Yeah.
you don't go to class and you sit down and have a lecture. You go in one-on-one. You go into digital videos, courses, and everything. And suddenly, and I see this within the readers, I've been reading the book for 25 years, started in 2000. And I see, especially in recent years, towards more or less when the pandemic started, a lot of the readers, and we've talked about this, we're now presenting these teachings and in this information in different manners. We now have discoverjesus.com. We have Urantia Book Teacher. Urantia Book Tutor, and you have Too Long Didn't Read. Can you tell us a little bit of what you're doing and what you see in this next phase of the revelation?
Yeah. I think one of the core things that I think is really important to remember is that towards the end of the book, and I'm going to have to paraphrase this, it talks about the need for each generation to have to rediscover Jesus and reinterpret him
Mm,
for themselves. And I think for this generation, um, a lot of rediscovering and reinterpreting him is obviously going to be a lot different than it was in the 1950s and 1960s. The
yeah,
the things that were going on back then, people would sit there and read.
yeah. By the
Even
fireside.
when exactly when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, there's nothing I liked more than just to like hide somewhere and read all day.
Yeah,
And that's probably why I grabbed a book that thick and just devoured it, like,
yeah,
without barely stopping, right?
yeah,
Um, I don't think a lot of people these days will do that.
yeah,
And I think, you go onto the internet, which is where most people go to get their information and everything these days, and you talk about articles, you say, "Oh, did you read this? Did you see this?" And the first thing people write, if it's more than 3 or 400 words, is "too long, didn't read."
yeah,
And the acronym is TLDR. And I
yeah,
think that really encapsulates how the current generation approaches reading anything longer than, say, 500, 1,000 words, really. They just don't have time. They don't wanna.
yeah,
They would rather get that information differently.
yeah,
And the way that a lot of people are getting it these days is video.
yeah,
And so Urantia TLDR um, is basically designed so that people get the information that's in the book, which is the most important thing,
Yeah.
to get that vision of reality that the Urantia book is sharing with us and revealing to us. They have to get it and at least see it, right? I'm not
Hmm.
saying that you have to believe it, or you have to not I'm not preaching or anything like that. You have to believe,
No,
but
no, no.
at least expose people to the ideas and the vision that is in that book. And I
Yeah.
think at least my solution to this is to make this Urantia TLDR streaming. It's a 5-season streaming series, broadcast quality series, right? There's 5 seasons, and it basically breaks down that whole vision that's in the book.
Which, by the way, you can all find here in our links. Everything that
Yeah,
Derica has been working on in TLDR is here in the links. So you were
thank you.
saying?
Yeah. So, we're just starting on the project. So, I mean, those 5 seasons aren't there yet, but we have a pilot episode done and we're in pre-production on season 1.
Awesome.
So it's a work in progress and it's going to
Yeah.
take a while, but we're dedicated to getting it done because we think it's really important.
Yeah.
So I get the irony, especially when we're calling it TLDR, of it being 5 seasons long.
Yeah. But it's
But
not reading, it's watching. So it's
it's
you can
watching.
get around it.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So you kind of need that much in terms of seasons. There's approximately 6 episodes in each season. You need that much to share a vision this big and this complex. And
Yeah.
it is the biggest and most complex and comprehensive and awe-inspiring vision of God's creation that we have ever had on this planet, as it should be, because it's the balloon every revelation, it gets bigger and bigger, right? So
We're
it
now in the
should be the
fifth story.
biggest.
We're in let's
Yeah,
say in the penthouse right now.
that's
We're
right.
getting to
That's
the
right.
top of that. Yeah,
Yeah. But there's
and
more to come. There's more
there's
to
more to
come,
come.
right?
Exactly, it's never
Yeah.
ending, and that's the beauty about the universe and the will of God. It's always evolving, always in this forward march. And yeah, I personally, when I started, I'm going to tell this how I got to understand or know the Urantia book. And back in 1999, I was in a sacred geometry workshop. I was 19 at the time, and it was a very intensive workshop. And we were encouraged to bring thoughts, and we had like a meditation time, and sharing time. And this guy read one of the quotes. Quoted the Urantia book, and it was the first time I heard something so impactful in my life, so full of truth, so full of love, but at the same time so commanding. It was there was something in me that said, this didn't come from a human mind.
Yeah.
That was my first glance, and I asked, where's this from? And he said, what's from
Yeah.
the Urantia book? And I was fortunate enough that the lady that was giving us the workshop had a copy, and this was in Mexico, and she had the copy in Spanish, and she got the book and
Oh,
gave it to me. I opened it and I said, what is this? And this was October 1999. So by that December, I asked Santa Claus I had vacation in the US, and I went to the US and I had Santa Claus. I asked him for the Urantia book. So he gave that to me in Christmas and started reading the 1st of January, 2000. So I
wow.
have the actual, the turn of the millennium. That's when I started. And I think everybody that is a UB reader, your Ancient Book reader, you go in as a skeptic, right? You go in,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, what's this all about? Oh, but you get to a point where you read it and boom, you see and you realize that this is the real stuff. So
Yeah.
I don't know when was that for you, but there's everybody has a moment where they and yesterday I actually was with we're going to have a podcast with him with Javier Martinez here in Spain, and he said he's a scientist, and he said the first time I read that light has weight, which was something that wasn't really even scientifically understood back then. And when he read that as a scientist, boom, his mind changed.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone has that like moment, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Mine
exactly.
is I was in university at the time. This is 1991. And a friend of mine that I had grown up with he was a little bit older than me, so he was a bit of a mentor.
Yeah.
And he showed up in my university town. He was starting university a year later than I am as a mature student, and we would spend a lot of time talking about spiritual stuff because we had met through the church, and we were talking one night, and he says to me, "I got a book you should read."
Uh-huh.
I'm like, "Okay," because it was my job to read. I was a university student.
Yeah.
That's what I
That's
did. I
what you
read
do.
and read and read and read, and I loved it, right? Um, so I said, "Yeah, okay, I'm game. I'll read anything you got. Who wrote it?" And he looked at me really mysteriously, and he said, "Angels." And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
I said, "Okay, yeah, well, I'll read it."
Yeah.
And
Cuckoo.
then,
Yeah. Let's see
yeah,
what's this all about.
so
Yeah.
he lent me his copy. I took it home. I opened it up, and the forward, I started right from the beginning, which, a lot of people suggest maybe you don't. But I can't remember what number paragraph it is, 4 or 5, but it starts "Your World, Urantia," and then it
Yeah.
just basically outlines exactly who and where we are in the universe, and I just couldn't put it down after that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
sucked me in. I was reading that book like somebody who hadn't had a drink of water for about a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I read it straight through in 3.5 days.
Really? Sure. It took me 4 years, actually.
Yeah.
It doesn't, because yeah,
Yeah.
and that's something that I always say. You don't find the book finds you. So
I agree
that's
100%. Yeah, it's when the student is ready, the teacher appears. They say that a
exactly,
lot in Japanese martial arts and stuff.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
and I think it applies outside of that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Derek, it's been really, really a joy to have this conversation with you about the revelation. And I mean, this is just the beginning of a lot of the conversations that we're going to have because there's a lot to take out. And
Yeah.
I want to thank you for participating. I mean, we have your links here that people can check. And I want to thank all our watchers that are here. Do like I always say, if you like it, subscribe and not only share it, but really tell people. It's better
Yeah.
that you can tell them with your own words. I mean, these guys there kind of moved me in such a way, and maybe you're contributing to their spiritual uplifting. So remember
Hmm.
to share. Remember to love your fellow men, fellow
That's right.
brothers as as
That's the
as
message. That's
that's
the
the
basic
message in the
message
end.
right there. Yeah.
That's it. So
Yeah.
I'm Santiago Neeland. This is the Divine Within. Take care and carpe diem. On the Divine Within podcast, we'll share real conversations to help you find a personal connection with God. My goal is to support your faith, growth, and journey toward discovering the divine within yourself. Join us to deepen your faith and spiritual journey.